The first time I noticed it, I thought it was a mistake. The photo was framed in the hallway, right outside the kitchen, the so-called spring picnic photo, taken when I was about 7. My brother Ryan stood front and center with grass stains on his knees, holding a plastic bat like it was a trophy. Behind him, our aunt smiled with one hand resting proudly on his shoulder. I was off to the side, holding the cake knife. I remember it because it was the first time they let me help with the cake. But in the frame hanging on the wall, I wasn't there. The image had been cropped, just enough to keep the cake, but not the girl standing next to it. Not me. I asked once, just casually. Wasn't I in this photo? My mother didn't look up from the sink. You blinked, sweetheart. And someone's arm was in the way. We had to crop it to make it fit. I nodded, but something about it didn't sit right. Because I remembered the photo clearly. I didn't blink. I smiled. I even wore the stupid yellow dress Grandma insisted on. So I went looking. In the attic, buried behind boxes of old blankets and forgotten decorations, was a crate of original photo prints, not digital, just dusty film shots stuck together with time and heat. I found the picnic photo. There I was, holding the knife, smiling, standing beside Ryan, very much in frame. No arm blocking me, no blinking eyes. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it next to the framed one downstairs. Same moment, same shot, just one version with me, one without. That's when I knew. Someone had deliberately cut me out of the memory. And not just once. That night, while everyone else was asleep, I crept back into the attic and pulled out every old photo I could find. Birthdays, Christmas, family vacations. I laid them out on the floor like evidence at a crime scene. And I compared them to what hung on our walls. Time and time again, there I was in the originals. At the edge of the frame, sometimes holding a present, sometimes just smiling in the background. But in the public versions, the ones people saw, I was gone. Edited, cropped, removed. Like I had never been there at all. You can ignore one missing photo. 2 is a pattern. 10 is a message. I didn't cry. I didn't confront anyone. I just sat there in the attic for hours, the musty air thick and unmoving, while the truth settled over me like dust on my skin. I wasn't supposed to be in those memories. Not to them. Not really. I thought back to all the times I'd felt out of place. The way family dinners always had one too few chairs. The way my birthdays were combined with Ryan's, except his name was always on the cake, mine scribbled in smaller icing at the corner. The way my mother would sigh when I asked for help with homework, but light up when Ryan talked about sports or school plays. I used to think it was just me. Maybe I was too quiet, too strange, too different. But now, I wasn't so sure. Because this was surgical. This was intentional. And someone had gone to a lot of trouble to make sure my place in this family looked smaller than it was. Maybe even non-existent. I went back downstairs and stared at the gallery of family portraits in the hallway. Framed smiles, warm hugs, laughter captured in glass, but none of them told the truth. Not about me. A week later, I tested it. I took a selfie with Ryan on his birthday, me on one side, him in the center, our cousin Mia on the other. I waited for it to be printed and framed like every other year. It went up 2 days later. I wasn't in it. The entire right edge of the photo had been trimmed. Mia and Ryan looked perfect. The space where I stood? Gone. As if I had never held the phone. Never stood beside them. Never existed in that moment. That night, I found the original on Ryan's phone while he was in the shower. There I was again. Half smile, arm around his shoulder. Another version of the truth. And once more, I had been cut. There's a point when disbelief turns into certainty. Mine came quietly, not with a confrontation, not with screaming or accusations, just a cold, sharp clarity that settled in my chest like a stone dropped into still water. I wasn't being forgotten. I was being erased. And people only erase what they're ashamed of, or what they want to pretend was never theirs to begin with. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror that night. Brown eyes, plain features, a face that always felt a little out of place among the sharp cheekbones and golden complexions of the family photo wall. That was when the question began to echo in my head, slow and calm like footsteps down a dark hallway. Who am I? To them? Because clearly, I wasn't just the quiet one or the awkward daughter. I was something else entirely. Something someone didn't want to see, didn't want remembered, didn't want loved. That was the night the girl in the photo disappeared, and the woman in the mirror decided to find out why. I grew up in a 3-bedroom house on Laurel Street, 2 miles from the town center, close enough to the highway for traffic noise to hum through the nights. It was the kind of neighborhood where people watered their lawns out of routine, not pride. From the outside, our home looked like stability. White shutters, blue mailbox, a porch swing that creaked when the wind picked up. It was clean, organized like everything in my mother's life. She liked order, schedules, control. Breakfast at 7 o'clock, chores by 10 o'clock, homework before dinner, no exceptions. Even our family game nights had a printed rotation schedule. Who picked the game, who cleaned up, who sat where. We weren't abused, not in any way that left bruises, but there was a quiet weight in the air, something unspoken that told me to tread lightly, speak softly, not ask too many questions. Especially not the wrong ones. My brother Ryan was the son in our house. Blonde-haired, green-eyed, athletic. He had a permanent slot at the dinner table. His stories never interrupted. My mother called him my little miracle when guests were around, always with a glass of Chardonnay in hand, always with that smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He got new sneakers before school started. I got hand-me-downs from donation boxes. He got a bike for Christmas. I got a sweater that still smelled faintly of mothballs. When I asked about it once, Dad, quiet, withdrawn, always halfway through his 3rd beer, mumbled something about money being tight. Then Ryan got a new tablet 2 weeks later. I learned early. Don't ask. Don't expect. Don't make waves. I wasn't jealous. Not exactly, but I noticed. I always noticed. There were signs, small ones, like the time our school had a family tree assignment. I brought mine home, excited to fill it out. I asked Mom if she had photos of her grandmother. She blinked at me. You don't need to go that far back, she said, pulling out a dusty box labeled kitchen. Do not open. Inside were photos, mostly Ryan. Baby pictures. First day of kindergarten. A birthday party I didn't remember being at. I held one up. It was him and Mom. She was holding him with both arms, laughing freely, openly, in a way I'd never seen before. Where's mine? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I must have misplaced them. But she never looked, and I never found any. Once, when I was 9, I overheard something. It was late. I'd woken up thirsty, padded quietly down the hall, and paused by the living room. The television flickered, casting pale blue light across the walls. Mom and Dad were sitting in silence. Then Mom said low, sharp, we shouldn't have brought her here. It was a mistake from the start. Dad didn't respond. She continued, voice flat, like she was reading a receipt. She doesn't fit. She never did. And you know it. I remember gripping the hallway wall, nails digging into the cheap paint. I didn't cry, just stood there, invisible, like always. At school, I was the girl who faded into corners. Not bullied, not popular, just there. Teachers liked me. I turned in my homework on time. I read books under my desk when class got loud. I joined art club, chess club, the recycling committee, anything to stay out of the house a little longer. No one ever came to my recitals or my exhibitions, but I stopped inviting them after a while. One day, my art teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, pulled me aside after class. "Lena," she said softly, "why are all your drawings of empty chairs?" I shrugged. "I like chairs." She nodded, but her eyes were sad. "Do you ever draw people sitting in them?" "No," I said. "They always leave before I finish." She didn't say anything after that, just placed a hand on my shoulder. And I think, for a moment, I wanted to cry, but I didn't know how. In 10th grade, I found an envelope in Dad's sock drawer. Thick, yellowed, the kind people used for official papers. It had my name on it. Inside was a birth certificate. I stared at it for a long time. Place of birth, Graywood Medical Center. Mother, unknown. Father, not listed. In the corner, in faded red ink, was a case number and one word: guardianship. I put it back without a sound. That night, I looked in the mirror again, harder this time. Same brown eyes, same plain face, and I saw it, finally. I didn't look like any of them. Not Mom, not Dad, not Ryan, not even close. Everything made sense after that. The distance, the avoidance, the way my mother would recoil slightly if I tried to hug her in front of people. I wasn't her daughter. I was her obligation, a reminder of something she didn't choose, maybe something she resented. And once I knew that, I stopped asking for things. I just learned how to live in the shadows. But shadows, remember, they collect details. They grow quiet and patient and sharp. And mine had grown tired of silence. The next time someone tried to crop me out, I would be ready. It started with a photograph, not a dramatic discovery, not a dusty album found in a locked trunk, just a loose picture that fluttered out of a kitchen drawer when I was searching for batteries. It landed face up. Ryan's 8th birthday. I remembered the cake chocolate with blue icing. I remembered the balloons, the way they kept popping in the heat. And I remembered standing to his left, holding the cake knife. But in this photo, there was only Ryan. His right side fully visible, the edge of the table. A shadow on the far left, just barely within frame. It looked like someone had trimmed it with scissors. Not carefully, just enough to remove me. I held the photo up to the light. The cut was jagged, uneven. The kind that comes from rushing, not correcting. For a moment, I wondered if I was imagining things. Maybe it had always been that way. But then I found another. This one from the spring picnic 2 years later. Ryan again mud-stained pants, holding a plastic bat. My aunt behind him, hand on his shoulder. I remembered this day too. I had been holding the watermelon slices, laughing. I wasn't in the photo. Not even a shadow this time. Just a strange negative space beside them, like something had been there, then erased. And it kept happening. Photo after photo. School trips. Birthdays. Christmas morning. I could remember being there. Could remember the outfits, the smells, the way Dad's old camera used to beep before clicking. But the evidence was missing. Cut. Trimmed. Cropped. Always me. Only me. I waited until the house was empty. A Saturday. Dad had taken Ryan to baseball practice. Mom was treating herself to a salon trip in town. I went to the attic. Boxes, mostly. Old clothes, broken lamps, Yellowed newspaper clippings from the time Ryan's baseball team made the regional finals. I found 3 photo albums. Saturday down on the floor, dust sticking to my palms. And I began flipping through. First few pages, fine. Then something strange. Clear page sleeves, but no photos inside. Just the faint residue of glue. Imprints where pictures had once been. On the bottom corner of one page, someone had written, "Lena, first day of 3rd grade." Nothing was there now. I checked the back of the album. A paper envelope tucked between the cover and cardboard. Inside were 4 photos cut up. Each had been sliced to remove a figure. One corner had part of a backpack strap. Another showed fingers holding a juice box. And one had my handwriting on the back. Field day. I came in 2nd. I remembered pinning that on my wall for a year. Why was it here? Cut. Discarded. Forgotten. I sat in that attic for over an hour. Not crying. Not even angry. Just still. The kind of stillness that comes when something inside you shifts without warning. I wasn't being paranoid. They had removed me. Not from life, but from memory. From history. From the version of the family they wanted to remember. I was the placeholder that didn't fit the frame. When Mom got home, I was already sitting at the kitchen table. She walked in, sunglasses still on, purse dangling from her wrist. Saw the photos on the table. Paused. Then said, "What are you doing?" My voice was quiet. "Why did you cut me out?" Her expression didn't change. Not guilt. Not surprise. Just a tired sigh, like she'd been dreading this for years. "You always dig too deep, Lena." That's not an answer. She took off her sunglasses, walked over, picked up the photo with Ryan holding the bat. She didn't look at it, didn't apologize, just said, "Sometimes things don't turn out the way we plan." And I was, what? A mistake? Another pause, longer this time. Then, "You were never supposed to know." And that was it. She turned away, walked upstairs, closed the door. I left the photos where they were. Didn't bother following her. Didn't need more words. Because I understood now. I had always felt like a guest in my own house. Now I knew why. I was a secret. A stain. A reminder of something no one wanted to remember. And I knew, if I wanted to uncover the whole truth, I'd have to go beyond what was left behind. I'd have to dig where they'd buried me, and pull myself out, one frame at a time. I didn't sleep that night. The ceiling fan spun overhead, slow and uneven. I watched its shadow loop across my wall until sunrise. I had only one name in my mind, Elaine Carter. I'd seen it once on a form left open in Mom's desk drawer years ago. I was 12, curious, maybe bored. I remembered the heading, Medical History Release, Birth Records. It listed me as Lena Carter infant name, pending adopt. Mom said it was a mistake, a hospital mix-up, that she and Dad had me at Street Agnes like they'd always said. Elaine was just a nurse. But the lie had a sound, a tone, that thick silence people use when the truth feels heavier than the room. The next day, I visited the county records office. I told the clerk I needed a certified copy of my birth certificate. She asked for ID, typed on her keyboard, then frowned. "There's a note on your file," she said. "It says this document was sealed after finalization of legal guardianship. You'll need to submit a request for unsealing. Legal guardianship. Not birth parents. Not mother and father. Legal." I kept my voice even. "Is there any contact information for the biological parent on file?" The clerk hesitated. "I'm not supposed to say..." Then, There's an address. Old. May not be valid. She scribbled it down. I thanked her and left. Elaine Carter lived or once lived in a weather-beaten duplex outside Greenwood, 45 minutes from my hometown. I drove in silence, hands locked tight at 10 and 2, heart too loud to ignore. The mailbox was rusted, the number peeling. A dog barked somewhere behind the house. A wind chime clinked against the gutter. I knocked, waited. Nothing. Knocked again. Then, footsteps. Slow, uneven. A woman opened the door. She looked older than I expected, maybe late 50s. Her hair was silver blonde, gathered in a loose bun. She wore a sweater with frayed cuffs and had one of those plastic bracelets hospitals give out. Her eyes locked on me. Not curious. Not welcoming. Just wide, stunned. Elaine Carter? I asked. She didn't answer, just leaned on the doorframe. I think you might be my mother. The wind paused. So did she. Then she opened the door wider. Come in, she said, quietly. The inside smelled like menthol rub and boiled cabbage, sparse furniture, stacks of magazines beside a worn recliner, photos on the wall, none of me. She sat at the table while I stood. After a long pause, she spoke first. I always thought you'd come. I didn't respond. She reached for a tin box on the shelf behind her, opened it, pulled out a photo. It was faded, but it was me. Newborn, wrapped in a yellow blanket. She slid it across the table. You were born at Sacred Mercy, the 17th of July. They told me you were healthy, quiet, barely cried. I looked at the photo, couldn't speak. She continued. I was 23. The other man was married. Your father, I mean. Not the man who raised you. I finally sat down. Why did you give me to them? She swallowed. Because she demanded it. His wife. Your adopted mother. She said if I kept you, she'd ruin me. Said he'd never support you anyway. She wanted to make it disappear, quietly. The phrase made my skin crawl. She cut a deal with the hospital, paid under the table. No lawyers, no courtrooms, just a sealed record and a new story. A deep pause. I was told to leave town, and I did. I stared at her. You didn't fight? I was poor, alone, scared, and I thought, maybe they could give you more than I ever could. I stood up, looked at her, then said, they didn't give me more. They gave me less and tried to erase me. Elaine's face twisted. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. Didn't know how. I just walked out. The door creaked behind me. I didn't look back. That night, I sat at the edge of my bed, holding the photo she gave me. I wasn't crying, but I was unraveling. Not because of what she did, but because of what they did after. Not the adoption, but the editing, the cutting, the silent removal of someone who lived in the same house, breathed the same air, shared the same holidays, and was still seen as disposable. I wasn't just given away. I was covered up, a living ghost in someone else's curated life. I returned to my parents' house the next day. Mom was in the garden, snipping roses. She looked up, saw me, didn't flinch. I know, I said flatly. She blinked, said nothing. I met her, Elaine. Still silence. You didn't adopt me. You erased me. She lowered her clippers, straightened her spine, then finally said, we did what we had to do. For who? For Ryan, she said. For our future. For peace. I didn't yell. Didn't scream. I just said, you edited me out of photos because I didn't fit your frame. And then, well, I'm done fitting. And I walked away. Not down the garden path, but through the gate, out into the street, away from the house where I was never truly wanted. But now, fully aware of who I was, and who I was about to become. I didn't go home for Christmas that year. Carol called, left a voicemail. It would mean a lot if you showed up. For Emma. For the family. I deleted it without listening twice. By then, I had already moved cities, took a part-time job in a records office, lived in a narrow studio apartment with buzzing pipes and creaky floorboards. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Freedom has a price. And mine was silence. I didn't ask questions anymore. I stopped sending birthday cards. I stopped checking their social media. I stopped pretending to be someone worth remembering. But the truth, the thing I had been chasing in the dark, found me again. In the form of a file. It came in a manila envelope, no return address, dropped at the front desk of the records office. Inside, hospital paperwork, dated 1998. My birth year. Admitting records from a small clinic 3 towns over. My mother listed as Mary Ann Fields. Not Carol. Next page. An affidavit. Surrender of custody. No name of the father. The last document. A guardianship transfer. Signed by Frank and Carol Monroe. No adoption. Just temporary care pending legal clarification. But that temporary had lasted 22 years. The folder burned like ice in my hands. So that was the truth. They were never my parents. They had never tried to become them either. They didn't adopt me because they loved me. They didn't raise me because they chose me. They took me in because someone dropped me at their feet and they couldn't say no loud enough. The next day, I booked a train back to my hometown. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I arrived on Christmas Eve, just after sunset. The street was quiet. Lights twinkled in windows. The Monroe house stood the same blue shutters, chipped steps, wreath on the door. I didn't knock. I stood across the street, behind a tree, and watched. Through the window, I saw them all. Carol, Frank, Emma, laughter. A wine glass raised, a toast, a clink. I waited until they all moved into the dining room. Then I crossed the street. I left the envelope on the welcome mat. No card, no note, just the weight of what they had hidden. Back in the city, I didn't expect a response. But 2 weeks later, I got a letter. From Emma. Handwritten. No return address. Lily? I don't know what to say. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I asked Mom. She cried. Dad didn't speak. They said it was complicated, that they didn't want to confuse you, that you were ours, even if not by blood. But they also said they were scared. Scared you'd leave. Scared you'd ask for things they couldn't give. I'm sorry they erased you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You were never a mistake. And you were never invisible to me. I hope someday you'll believe that. Emma. I didn't cry. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer I never opened twice. Emma meant it. That much I could tell. But the damage wasn't hers to undo. Not anymore. I moved again. Not out of fear. Just instinct. Like a wounded animal that doesn't return to familiar ground, even after the trap is gone. My new apartment had no pictures on the wall. Just blank plaster and a mattress on the floor. I liked it that way. Empty rooms don't lie. They don't pretend to hold memories that never belonged to you. I didn't speak to Emma again. Not because I hated her, but because healing wasn't a team sport. I stopped counting the years since I left home. The calendar became irrelevant. Milestones felt like illusions, graduations, birthdays, holidays, manufactured checkboxes for people who had a place in someone else's story. I wasn't anyone's story. I worked, ate alone, walked the city at night when it rained because, in the rain, no one asked questions about tears. One day, while indexing archived property records at work, I came across the deed to a small farmhouse outside town. The owner? Mary Ann Fields. The name from the file. The address was barely a real place, just a line on a rural map, between two creeks and a dead-end road. I sat with that file for a full hour. Then I clocked out early. The farmhouse sat crooked on its foundation, like it was trying to lean away from time itself. The paint peeled in long white strips. The shutters hung like tired eyelids. But someone lived there. Faint smoke from the chimney. A laundry line with two faded shirts. I didn't knock. I stood by the fence, uncertain. Then the door creaked open. A woman stepped out, slim, gray hair twisted into a bun, skin browned by sun and age. She looked at me for a long time, not startled, not surprised, just waiting. "Mary Ann?" I asked. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyes answered. I took a breath. "My name is Lily. I think you knew me once." A pause. Then, very softly, "Yes." I stepped forward. She didn't smile, didn't cry, just opened the door wider. I followed her inside. The house smelled of old wood and something faintly sweet, like overripe fruit, left too long in a bowl. No photos, no television, just stacks of books and a worn-out sofa. She poured tea. No questions. When I sat down, my hands trembled slightly. "You gave me away," I said. She nodded. I was 19. That was all. No excuses. No stories about broken love or lost chances. Just facts. "I never wanted to erase you," she said, "but I knew they would." I stared at the chipped edge of my teacup. Then why them? Because they said yes. Because I had no one else. She didn't look ashamed. And maybe that was what I needed to see. I didn't ask if she regretted it. Because it didn't matter. The past wasn't a hallway you could walk back through. It was a locked vault. And this was just the echo leaking through the cracks. She reached for a box under the table. Inside, a faded blanket, a hospital bracelet, a photo. Me barely a year old. In her arms, she didn't say anything. She didn't have to. We just sat there. Two people with no words left, but the weight of everything between them. I didn't take the box. I left it there on her table, in her house, in that space where the air had been holding its breath for 25 years. Because I didn't want proof. I didn't need artifacts. I just needed silence to make sense again. We said little after that. I thanked her. She nodded. I stepped outside before dusk, and when the wooden door closed behind me, it didn't sound like the end of anything. It just sounded honest. 3 weeks later, I returned home to the city, not to the family that never claimed me. Emma had messaged once, "Hope you're safe." I didn't reply. They didn't deserve answers. That winter, my landlord left a stack of discarded furniture in the hallway, old chairs, dented picture frames, a cracked vanity mirror. I helped him carry it to the dumpster. Among the pile, a thick photo album spilled open, pages torn, some images smeared from water damage. I paused when I saw it. A family, smiling, arms looped, captured in the kind of moment people frame. But one picture had been ruined, someone's face scratched out violently with ink. A daughter, maybe? A sister? I stared for a long time. Then closed the album, carried it to the dumpster like the rest. Because erasure doesn't only happen with scissors or silence. It happens in the quiet choices people make, who they call, who they protect, who they cut out so the picture makes more sense to them. I used to want to be framed, to be part of something hung on a wall, smiled at by strangers, remembered at dinner tables. Not anymore. Now, I frame myself. I keep one photo on my wall. It's not of me. It's not of them. It's an empty playground at sunset. Swings still. Shadows long. A place where no one claps when you arrive and no one cries when you leave. But it's mine. Because sometimes, survival means giving up the need to be chosen. And instead, choosing yourself. They still don't speak my name. Still crop their memories to fit their comfort. Let them. I no longer look for myself in their albums. Because the truth? I was never lost. I was just edited out.